Rules on Civil Procedure, Rule 35, Summary Judgment. Section 1. Summary Judgment for Claimant. A party seeking to recover upon a claim, counterclaim, or cross-claim, or to obtain a declaratory relief may, at any time after the pleading in answer thereto has been served, move with supporting affidavits, depositions, or admission for a summary judgment in his or her favor upon all or any part thereof. Section 2. Summary Judgment for Defending Party. A party against whom a claim, counterclaim, or cross-claim is asserted or a declaratory relief is sought may, at any time, move with supporting affidavits, depositions, or admissions for a summary judgment in his or her favor as to all or any part thereof. Section 3. Motion and proceedings thereon. The motion shall cite the supporting affidavits, deposition, or admission, and the specified law relied upon. The adverse party may file a comment and serve opposing affidavits, deposition, or admissions within a non-extendable period of 5 calendar days from receipt of the motion, unless the court orders the conduct of a hearing. Judgment sought shall be rendered forthwith if the pleadings, supporting affidavits, depositions, and admissions on file show that, except as to the amount of damages, there is no genuine issue as to any material fact, and that the moving party is entitled to a judgment as a matter of law. Any action of the court on a motion for summary judgment shall not be subject of an appeal or petition for certiorari, prohibition, or mandamus. Again, any action of the court on a motion for summary judgment shall not be subject of an appeal or petition for certiorari, prohibition, or mandamus. Section 4. Case not fully adjudicated on motion. If on motion under this rule, judgment is not rendered upon the whole case or for all the reliefs sought, and the trial is necessary, the court may, by examining the pleadings and the evidence before it, and by interrogating counsel, ascertain what material facts exist without substantial controversy, including the extent to which the amount of damages or other relief is not in controversy, and direct such further proceedings in the action as are just. The facts so ascertained shall be deemed established, and the trial shall be conducted on the controverted facts accordingly. Section 5. Form of affidavits and supporting papers. Supporting and opposing affidavits shall be made on personal knowledge, shall set forth such facts as would be admissible in evidence, and shall show affirmatively that the affiant is competent to testify to the matters stated therein. Certified true copies of all papers or parts thereof referred to in the affidavit shall be attached thereto or served therewith. Section 6. Affidavits in bad faith. Should it appear to its satisfaction at any time that any of the affidavits presented pursuant to this rule are presented in bad faith or solely for the purpose of delay, the court shall forthwith order the offending party or counsel to pay the other party the amount of the reasonable expenses which the filing of the affidavits caused him or her to incur, including attorney's fees. It may, after hearing, further adjudge the offending party or counsel guilty of contempt. Rule 36. Judgment, final orders, and entry thereof. Section 1. rendition of judgment and final orders. A judgment or final order determining the merits of the case shall be in writing personally and directly prepared by the judge, stating clearly and distinctly the facts and the law on which it is based, signed by him and filed with the clerk of court. Section 2. Entry of judgment on and final orders. If no appeal or motion for new trial or reconsideration is filed within the time provided in these rules, the judgment or final order shall forthwith be entered by the clerk in the book of entries of judgment. The date of finality of the judgment or final order shall be deemed to be the date of its entry. The record shall contain the dispositive part of the judgment or final order and shall be signed by the clerk with a certificate that such judgment or final order has become final and executory. Section 3. Judgment for or against one or more of several parties. Judgment may be given for or against one or more of several plaintiffs and for or against one or more of several defendants. When justice so demands, the court may require the parties on each side to file adversary pleadings as between themselves and determine their ultimate rights and obligations. Section 4. Several judgments. In an action against several defendants, the court may, when a several judgment is proper, render judgment against one or more of them, leaving the action to proceed against the others. Section 5. Separate judgment. When more than one claim for relief is presented in an action, the court at any stage, upon a determination of the issues material to a particular claim and all counterclaims arising out of the transaction or occurrence which is the subject matter of the claim, may render a separate judgment disposing of such claim. The judgment shall terminate the action with respect to the claim so disposed, and the action shall proceed as to the remaining claims. In case a separate judgment is rendered, the court, by order, may stay its enforcement until the rendition of a subsequent judgment, or may prescribe such conditions as may be necessary to secure the benefit thereof to the party in whose favor the judgment is rendered. Section 6. Judgment against entity without juridical personality. When judgment is rendered against two or more persons sued as an entity without juridical personality, the judgment shall set out their individual or proper names if known. Rule 37. New trial or reconsideration. Section 1. Grounds of or period for filing motion for new trial or reconsideration. Within the period of taking an appeal, the aggrieved party may move the trial court to set aside the judgment or final order and grant a new trial for one or more of the following causes materially affecting the substantial rights of the said party. A. Fraud, accident, mistake, or excusable negligence which ordinary prudence could not have guarded against, and by reason of which such aggrieved party has probably been impaired in his rights. Or B. Newly discovered evidence which he could not, with reasonable diligence, have discovered and produced at the trial, at which, if presented, would probably alter the result. Within the same period, the aggrieved party may also move for reconsideration upon on the grounds that the damages awarded are excessive, that the evidence is insufficient to justify the decision or final order, or that the decision or final order is contrary to law. Section 2. Contents of motion for new trial or reconsideration and notice thereof. The motion shall be made in writing, stating the grounds or grounds, therefore, a written notice of which shall be served by the movant on the adverse party. A motion for new trial shall be proved in the manner provided for proof of motions. A motion for the cause mentioned in paragraph A of the preceding section shall be supported by affidavits of merits, which may be rebutted by affidavits. A motion of the cause mentioned in paragraph B shall be supported in affidavits of witnesses, by whom such evidence is expected to be given, or by duly authenticated documents which are proposed to be introduced in evidence. A motion for reconsideration shall point out specifically the findings or conclusions of the judgment or final order which are not supported by the evidence on which are contrary to law, making express reference to the testimonial or documentary evidence or to the provisions of law alleged to the contrary to such findings or conclusion. A pro forma motion for new trial or reconsideration shall not toll the reglementary period of appeal. Section 3. Action upon motion for new trial or reconsideration. The trial court may set aside the judgment or final order and grant a new trial upon such terms as may be just and may deny the motion. If the court finds that excessive damages have been awarded or that the judgment or final order is contrary to the evidence or law, it may amend such judgment or final order accordingly. Section 4. Resolution of motion. A motion for new trial or reconsideration shall be resolved within 30 days from the time it is submitted for resolution. Section 5. Second motion for new trial. A motion for new trial shall include all grounds then available, and those not so included shall be deemed waived. A second motion for new trial based on a ground not existing nor available when the first motion was made may be filed within the time herein provided excluding the time during which the first motion had been pending. No party shall be allowed a second motion for reconsideration of a judgment or final order. Again, second motion for new trial. A motion for new trial shall include all grounds then available, and those not so included shall be deemed waived. A second motion for new trial based on a ground not existing nor available when the first motion was made may be filed with the time herein provided, excluding the time during which the first motion had been pending. No party shall be allowed a second motion for reconsideration of a judgment or final order. Section 6. Effect of granting a motion for new trial. If a new trial is granted in accordance with the provisions of this rule, the original judgment or final order shall be vacated, and the action shall stand for trial de novo. But the recorded evidence taken upon the former trial, insofar as the same is material and competent to establish the issues, shall be used as the new trial without retaking the same. Section 7. Partial new trial or reconsideration. If the grounds for a motion under this rule appear to the court to effect the issues as to only a part or less than all of the matter in controversy, or only one, or less than all of the ulit. If the grounds for a motion under this rule appear to the court to affect the issues as to only a part or less than all of the matter in controversy, or only one, or less than all of the parties to it, the court may order a new trial or grant reconsideration as to such issues if severable without interfering with the judgment or final order upon the rest. Section 8. Effect of order for partial new trial. When less than all of the issues are ordered retried, the court may either enter a judgment or final order as to the rest, or stay the enforcement of such judgment or final order until after the new trial. Again, effect of order for partial new trial. When less than all of the issues are ordered retried, the court may either enter a judgment or final order as to the rest, or stay the enforcement of such judgment or final order until after the new trial. Section 9. Remedy against order denying a motion for new trial or reconsideration. An order denying a motion for new trial or reconsideration is not appealable, the remedy being an appeal from judgment or final order. An order denying a motion for new trial or reconsideration is not appealable, the remedy being an appeal from the judgment or final order. Relief from judgment order. Rule 38. Relief from judgment, orders, or other proceedings. Section 1. Petition for relief from judgment, order, or other proceedings. When a judgment or final order is entered, or any other proceeding is thereafter taken against a party in any court through fraud, action, mistake, accident. Ulit. When a judgment or final order is entered, or any other proceeding is thereafter taken against a party in any court through fraud, accident, mistake, or excusable negligence, he may file a petition in such court, and in the same case, praying that the judgment or order or proceeding be set aside. Section 2. Petition for relief from denial of appeal. When a judgment or final order is rendered by the court in a case and a party thereto by fraud, accident, mistake, or excusable negligence has been prevented from taking an appeal, he may file a petition in such court, and in the same case, praying that the appeal be given due course. Section 3. Time for filing petition, contents and verification. A petition provided for in either of the preceding sections of this rule must be verified, filed within 60 calendar days after the petitioners learn of the judgment, final order, or other proceedings to be set aside, and not more than 6 months after such judgment or final order was entered or such proceeding was taken, and must be accompanied with affidavits showing the fraud, accident, mistake, or excusable negligence relied upon, and the facts constituting the petitioner's good and substantial cause of action or defense, as the case may be. Section 4. Order to file an answer. If the petition is sufficient in form and substance to justify relief, the court in which it is filed shall issue an order requiring the adverse parties to answer the same within 15 days from the receipt thereof. The order shall be served in such manner as the court may direct, together with copies of the petition and the accompanying affidavits. Section 5. Preliminary injunction. Pending proceedings. The court in which the petition is filed may grant such preliminary injunction as may be necessary for the preservation of the rights of the parties upon the filing by the petitioner of a bond in favor of the adverse party, condition that if the petition is dismissed or the petitioner fails on the trial of the case upon its merits, he will pay the adverse party all damages and costs that may be awarded to him by reason of the issuance of such injunction or other proceedings following the petition. But such injunctions shall not operate to discharge or extinguish any lien which the adverse party may have acquired upon the property of the petitioner. Section 6. Proceedings after answer is filed. After the filing of the answer or the expiration of the period thereof, therefore, the court shall hear the petition, and if after such hearing it finds that the allegations thereof are not true, the petition shall be dismissed. But if it finds said allegations to be true, it shall set aside the judgment or final order or other proceeding complained of upon such terms as may be just. Thereafter, the case shall stand as if such judgment, final order, or other proceeding had never been rendered, issued, or taken. The court shall then proceed to hear and determine the case as if a timely motion for a new trial or reconsideration had been granted by it. Section 7. Procedure where the denial of an appeal is set aside. Where the denial of an appeal is set aside, the lower court shall be required to give due course to the appeal and to elevate the record of the appealed case as if a timely and proper appeal had been made. Again, for Section 2, petition for relief from denial of appeal. When a judgment or final order is rendered by any court in a case and a party thereto by fraud, accident, mistake, or excusable negligence has been prevented from taking an appeal, he may file a petition in such court and in the same case, praying that the appeal be given due course. Okay, grounds for motion for new trial or reconsiderations. A. Fraud, accident, mistake, or excusable negligence which ordinary prudence could not have guarded against and by reason of which such aggrieved party has probably been impaired in his rights. Or B. Newly discovered evidence which he could not, with reasonable diligence, have discovered and produced at the trial, and which, if presented, would probably have altered the result.